Okay, so tonight's class then is on the Smart Tool. And what we want to look at real carefully is how to set it up correctly so that you can cut your parts. I've been out to visit several customers, especially those first getting started, and there's some questions. Most of you guys are kind of old hat and know this inside and out, but I do want to go through a couple of advanced things as well. So we're going to look at, first of all, the setup. So I'm going to open up the Spire right here. And there are two things to keep in mind whenever you are preparing to setting up a program and setting up the machine to run the program. Okay. And when we go to create it, you're going to see it here that the two that we're really interested in, I don't care about the width, height, thickness at all. I'm really cared about the Z0 plane or position, whether it's on the machine bed or the material surface, and then the XY datum position, whether it's center or one of the corners, or if you're using an offset here. Okay, so we'll keep this very basic. We won't go into why we do all of these things right now. We'll try and keep it very simple. If you do have questions on machine bed versus machine surface, you can bring it up at the end of the class and we'll go through this in greater detail. But let's stick right now with these two items. So when you set it up, we can set it on the machine bed. My preference, normally that's what I do, so we're going to do it that way. And the XY datum position is here in the corner. So right down here where my mouse is on the screen on this corner right here. And again, Z0 position is on the machine, not on the material surface. Now that's not right or wrong, it's just a preference. So we can go into greater detail on that if you have questions. Okay, so once you have this set up and you program this part, whatever it is, if we just said, I'll just put Legacy on here or something simple, and we were going to program this and cut it. Okay. And again, I'm not going to go into great details on how to program right now. That's a different class. I really want to stick with the Smart Tool. But in order to get this to cut correctly, we have to set up the machine to match these settings here. Okay. So we're going to, the two things that you got to do is the XY datum position, and the second one is the Z. If you set those two items up on your machine, you can run any program. And tonight we're not going to focus at all on the XY datum position. We'll worry about that later. Right now we're going to focus on just the Z0 position. Okay, so here's the problem that you're going to run into is that, first of all, you have to set any bit that you're using to 0 on either the surface of the material or on the machine bed. It has to be set up before you run the program. The second problem is that as soon as it changes the cutter, if your program has more than one tool in the program, which hopefully you will, in most cases you will, not hopefully, but in most cases, then every cutter is a different length. And so if you don't reset up that length of that tool bed or the Z0 position for that cutter, it will cut the wrong depth, too deep or not deep enough. So the Smart Tool is going to solve both of these problems. And we'll kind of go through a couple of situations and show you where they are. But before we do that, I want to talk about real quickly, there are several methods for setting up the Z-axis, the Z0 position. You can set it up manually, and this is an old machinist technique where you actually put a piece of paper under the bit and you step jog down until the router bit pins that paper. And I set it for 1/1000th of an inch in your step jog, and we can show that a little bit later if you have questions on it. But step jog, when you get close to the paper, just step jog down 1/1000th of an inch until it pins the paper. And then you'll set your Z0 to 0, okay, on the machine. Whether using Mach 3 or Delta, doesn't matter. You set the Z to 0 manually, okay? And then you can run that part. The problem is that if you have more than one tool in that program, it's not going to let you adjust that Z. So what you have to do is separate every single tool into a different program and run them individually. If you're running a program that only has one tool, great. You can set it up manually and it works perfectly. And I do this occasionally. When I'm surfacing off the base table, when I first get started, I set the Z manually. I don't use the smart tool, okay, because I set it with the surfacing bit that I'm using to surface the part. Okay, and there are other times when I'll set up manually as well. Now, the other thing, some of the other systems you see on the market will have what's called a Z0 plate. And what they do is you put the plate on the material or on the bed, and you bring your bit down until it touches manually, and it sets the Z to 0 for you instead of manually setting it up. The problem with that is the same thing. It sets it up for that one bit. So you've got to save every tool in your program to a different program. Okay, so when we go into, let me share my screen here real quickly. Okay, so when we go into our part here, and let's come over here and we'll program this real quickly so we have a tool path. And I'm just going to use the 90-degree V bit. That's fine. We'll just do that. So here is our tool path we want to cut. Now, you have a couple of options when we go to save this out. So I'm going to click on my Save Toolpath. And the default is the selected toolpath. So when I select this one or just highlight it, I don't even have to check it, it's going to create code just for this one. In this case, that's okay. I'm only using one bit. But if I had a program that had 3 different router bits or something like that, it would only create a program with this particular bit. And you'd have to highlight each toolpath and save it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use it like this, a visible toolpath to one file. Now, even if you're running a 3x5 or an artisan or a manual tool machine, you still program it as if it's auto tool change. So you put all of your toolpaths into one file. So it's very important when you first set up to check that right there. And then, of course, you'd have to choose your post processor. And this is a brand new machine, so I haven't even set up my post processor here yet. Not going to do that now. That's not the point. Okay, we'll get into more of that later. But you do want to set up for visible toolpaths, choose your post processor for your system, Mach 3 or Delta, and then save that toolpath out. Okay, so now that we've got the part programmed, we have to match that exactly the same on the machine. Okay, so the next thing I want to go over real quickly is just exactly how the smart tool works, because you have 2 different ways that you use it. One is we call it multiple tools, and that's typical. So, in fact, I teach everybody when they're first starting to always touch off for multiple tools. If you do that, you'll never go wrong, as long as you've got the smart tool either on top or the bottom, wherever it's supposed to go, however you programmed it. Okay, so multiple tools. Let me just switch over to this program, and maybe you can see this. Right. Let me, real quickly, I'm just going to have this, move this cut over here so you can see it. Okay, so this is how we're going to set up the smart tool. And if we're doing multiple tools, you're going to always start here. And before you hit that setup button for multiple tools, you have to have the router bit positioned over the smart tool pad like this. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just run this so that you can watch it work. You'll notice that it touches twice right there. That's first time to find it, second time to give it a real accurate reading. And then it waits for you to move it over to the home position for the smart tool. What you just saw right there, that rapid movement, is called the rapid Z. We'll get into that more in a minute, but it saves you a lot of time, because if you don't have that on, it'll probe the entire distance, which would take you a very long time. So this is how it's working. When it touched off the smart tool pad first time on the table, it recorded a value. So when it touched up here on the top, it recorded the value. Then it came over here and it touched off here and it measured the difference. Okay. So on this particular setup, my part is higher than the Smart Tool pad by only about 1/8 of an inch. So it would have recorded that number, it memorized that number. It's just making a setting. So it's an 1/8 inch difference. Okay. So now whenever you run a program, this automatically turns your Smart Tool on when you do this. And when you run the program, it will always come up, every tool change will come up and touch off that Smart Tool pad. And when it touches that pad, it's going to set the Z value to, in this case, minus 0.125, because the table was higher by 1/8 of an inch. So if you raised it 1/8 of an inch and this ran right over, you'd be right even with the surface of that table. So whatever the difference is between the material that it's sitting on and the top of the Smart Tool pad in this position, that measurement is recorded and kept. Smart Tool is turned on, and now you just run your program. That's the standard way to do it all the time. Right? And if you do it that way, you'll never be wrong. Does somebody have a question?
Yeah, Tracy, are you showing us Mach 3 or Delta or something? Are you looking at that? Because all we're seeing is your screen.
Yeah, and I'm going to do these. I'm going to do this both live in Delta and Mach 3, but okay. I'm sitting here. Well, I can do it either way. So, for example,
we're only seeing the machine. So if you're looking at the.
Okay, so let me share my screen with you real quickly. So if we're doing Mach 3, now this is not hooked up to the machine. Okay, then this is what you're going to see. Right, so when you click on this Smart Tool setup right here, this one is going to ask if it's over the Smart Tool pad, and you'd say yes or no. If it's not there, you're going to say no, and it's going to let you start over again. Once you click yes, it's asking, are you running a program with multiple tools or single, or just asking multiple tools? And if you say yes, it's going to do multiple tool touch off, exactly like we just did. If you say no, it's going to do a single tool touch off. Okay. So I'm going to cancel this and stop it right here real quickly. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my other screen.
And does that difference get recorded somewhere in Mach 3?
It is. It's recorded in Mach 3. It's in the background, but that difference is recorded.
Okay, it's a background thing. Thanks.
Okay. Now we're looking here at the Delta system. Okay, and so in here, you're going to click on the Smart Tool display screen. If you're in one of these other screens, you can click on that. It'll take you to the Smart Tool. And this top bar will enable Smart Tool, where when we're in Mach 3, there's a Smart Tool button that has a little light next to it. I forgot to show you that. We'll go through that in a minute. Okay, so you can either enable or disable it by turning it on and off. And then you just click on this multiple tools right here, and it's going to touch off. And that's exactly what I did. I touched multiple tools. It touched off the both. And it recorded that value, and it's in the background. It knows it. So now anytime you run the program, it's going to simply, I'll stop sharing here real quickly. Anytime you run the program, it's going to grab a cutter, the M6 is going to grab the cutter. It's going to take it over the Smart Tool pad. It's going to touch off, and it's going to set the Z to that value. So if it's lower than the table by 1/8 of an inch, it would set it to a minus 0.125. If it's higher than the table, it would set it for a positive, whatever the distance is. Okay, it just records that, and every time it touches, that's what it puts in the Z axis, and so it'll cut correctly. Now the other way is a single tool. All right, and let me put this over here real quickly. And we'll go back over this position. Okay, now I just like to lower it down with my controls to get close, because it'll probe the entire distance, and it'll take all day if it's way up in the air. The other thing that you want to watch is on this particular Smart Tool pad. See if I can get this in the camera. Okay, here we go. Let's do it this way. This particular smart tool pad, this has a sensor inside of it, and you can see that it flexes. Okay, so it has to depress that in order to trigger the proximity switch inside here. Consequently, you want to touch off as close to the middle as possible. If you touch off clear over on this edge, you can get an erroneous reading. It can be off a few thousandths of an inch. So you want to put it into the center. And that's why I like to bring the bit down close. Before I hit the button so that it will touch off right there. I need to come up with a way to split the screen so you can see my control and you can see the machine at the same time. But right now I'm just going to go into Smart Tool and I'm going to hit Single Tool. Okay, that's the end of it right there. Now I'll share my screen and show you what happened over here if I can. Okay, so I clicked on the single tool right here and it went down and it touched, but you notice that Smart Tool is turned off. It did that intentionally because when you do a single tool, you don't want to ever touch off the Smart Tool again. You just want to touch off one time and it will raise back up to the top and then it will be done. So it turns the Smart Tool off so that you can run that program. So that's going to be extremely important that you touch off with the bit you're going to cut with, obviously. If you change the bit, it'll be different and you'll get a different cut, right? So the single tool is very powerful because you don't have to keep touching off the Smart Tool pad. Just touch off one time, move the pad out of the way, run the program, you're done. If there's only a single tool in there. But you have to be aware that you make sure you don't turn Smart Tool back on. That's the number one mistake I've seen with Smart Tool is that somebody touches off single tool. They'll enable the Smart Tool and so that it touches off again and resets your Z, and that's not cutting the proper depth. Okay, so that's how they work. The second one, the single tool, when we touched off this one right here, it set the Z to the surface of material underneath right there, and then it just raised up. So if I take this, and then on my screen, I tell it to go to Z0. Okay, it goes right to Z0 intentionally. Now, this is something that you have to be fairly cautious of. Let me share my screen again and explain this real quickly. Okay, so I went into the control right here and I pushed this offset Z button. Now on your Mach 3 system, you do not have this. All you have is a go to offset button. And so if you go to offset, it'll go to Z safe at the top, then it'll go to XY0, then it'll go down to Z0. And that can be very, very dangerous because if you haven't set the Z0 properly, you could drive that bit down through something. So in Delta, we separated these two buttons. So we can just go to the XY0, it'll be at the Save Z at the top. And then we can click on this button to go down to the Z to check it if you want to do that. And since I just set it, I knew it was perfect. So I had the courage to click that button and then it was okay, right? Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you real quickly in Mach, okay? So this right here enables the Smart Tool and disables the Smart Tool. This is your Smart Tool button right here. And then this button right here, go to offset. This is the one that I told you is fairly dangerous because if you hit that, it's going to go to Z0. And if you don't, if it's over the top of the wood and it was set for the bottom of the wood, it's going to drive it right through the wood. So we don't normally use this. What I typically do is I'd use the manual data input and I just say X0, Y0 and hit enter. And that would go to that position. Or I could just put in here Z0 and it would go to that position as well. So there are ways around it.
You don't have to put in G0, X0, Y0?
Okay, here's the difference. All right, these are called modal codes. So if you look on here under active modes, you can see a G0 right here. That means it's in the G0 mode. So if I put a value in here of X10 and I hit enter, it'll just drive it to X10. Okay, but it'll do it with that G0. The only way I could change that is if I put a G1 X10 and a feed rate of maybe 100 inches a minute or whatever I want. Okay, now you'll notice that if I, this is a little off track, but if I put G1 in here and I hit enter, cannot do G1 with 0 feed rate. Okay, let's do a G1 feed rate of 100. Okay, we're going to reset this guy. Okay, so when I put in G1 F100, I had to have the feed rate in there. Then you'll notice that this up here now says G1. So anything that I do down here, if I do X10 now, it would move at 100 inches a minute because it's in the G1 mode and that feed rate is set. Okay, you can see the feed rate over here on this side on the right where it's at 100. Okay, so again, I'm sorry, what's that?
So a question, well, I was taught by one of the guys that I could use the go to offset. The only thing that I do that I'm in a habit of doing now, if I want to go to X and Y 0, I always zero my Z high. I can always reset it, but I've kind of trained myself, if I ever use go to offset, I always set my Z high. So I want it. That's one of like, it's like kind of a note I have on my computer monitor. So
yeah, that's perfect. But you're in Mach 3. What you'd want to do is raise the Z up so it's not going to go through the wood. You intentionally know it's not. Zero it right there. Then you can say go to offset, and it's going to go to the save Z first. Then it's going to go there, and then it's going to go to that new position that you just set. And then, of course, you have to reset your Z. You're absolutely correct. Now, if you've done a Smart Tool setup, you don't have to worry about it. If you do, especially if you do multiple tools and you do Smart Tool setup, then remember that number, that digit, that value, the difference is stored in memory in the background. And so when you run this part, it will reset the Z back to the material, even though you changed it here manually. Okay, because you will have the Smart Tool turned on like that.
Yep. Okay. And that's one of the things that I was taught in the beginning is never hit that button unless you raise your Z up.
Perfect.
It's kind of just just programmed in my head to not do that.
That's good. That's perfect. That's exactly what we teach. Okay. So, and that's one reason why in the Delta system we switched it and made it so that it's separated so that you can leave Z set to wherever it is and you can just go to X and Y real easily. So we were able to add a lot of real custom controls. All right. Okay, I'm getting some. Okay, I'm muting everybody real quickly. I got some background noise. I don't know if somebody's trying to talk and their speaker system's not working.
Yeah, he's trying to talk, but he's sounds like he's got in Mickey Mouse mode.
Right.
That would be Carl. He's got something setting. It sounds like. There we go.
Well, that looks like Carl.
He's like, room's full of helium.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna mute. Carl, I'm sorry, I'm muting you. Okay, something's wrong with your audio. I want you to use the chat. Put your question or comment in your chat, and I will make sure we go through that at the end here. I'm going to do chats at the very end. I want two other things I want to go through, and then we'll catch all the chats. So put it in there, Carl. I apologize. I'm not going to let you speak because you sound like Mickey Mouse on steroids or on helium or something. Okay. All right, let's do. Now, I've kind of shown you the two different systems already. I was going to separate those to show, but we've kind of gone through that already. So what we're going to talk about next, and I want to go over, is Rapid Z. All right, so let's go back. I'm going to stop, or I'm going to switch over to this. Okay, now when you're over the Smart Tool pad, here I'm going to raise this Z up a little bit. Okay, so when I do a multiple tool touch off, you're going to see two things. Number one, if it's over the pad, it doesn't know where the pad is, so we cannot do a rapid Z. So when we hit this multiple tools, it's just going to probe very slowly until it touches. So if you've got it at the very top, it can take quite a long time to get all the way down there. So that's why I lower it down when I'm touching off here, to center it and to get it close. Now, when I click on continue, it told me to move the pad, and I click continue. You're going to see it do a rapid Z right when it gets over the pad, right here. And now this has still got quite a bit of distance in here, and we leave it this way because we have customers in here running. If they put a long bit in, we don't want to crash into the Smart Tool pad. So we intentionally leave a pretty good sized gap there, okay? Now, in Mach 3, depends on if you have an auto tool change or a manual tool change system. Let me show you this real quickly. I'll share my screen. And we'll do some Mach, right? So this right here, I'm not sure which one I have open. Well, now I can just look at the advanced. Okay, this is a manual tool change system. The manual tool change is quite difficult to set it up. All right, you'll have to go into VB Script Editor, and you'll have to go into your setup code under macros. You have to go into the Maverick macro set and down to 999. I've got the wrong macros in here. Okay, so let me see if I've got another one I can show you. Yeah, we'd come into here. Yeah, 999. There we go. And it has a value for Z rapid plunge, and you have to edit this value right here. Again, it's under, let me show you how to get there one more time, because this is like doing a little bit of brain surgery, but you have to go to Operator, VB Script Editor, open this up. You're gonna have to navigate to your Mach 3, your macros, and the one that you're using. You go to M999, that's the one that sets everything up. And you would have to change this value right here, -1, okay? So on the Mach 3 systems, it's pretty much set and done in the manual tool change. You can go in and change it, but if you do, I would highly recommend that you contact Mosiah and have him help you out with this so you don't crash, okay? Now I'm gonna, real quickly, I'm gonna open up Mach 3 again, but this time I'm gonna open, for the Gemini, this is an auto tool change system. This one we got a little bit smarter in that we went into the advanced setup and we created a field right here that is, it's not labeled, because when I had this screen design built by somebody else, I told them, I says, give me some buttons that are just called functions, and give me some registers, and we don't know what they're going to be. It's just for future development. Well, we used it for future development here. So if you change this -1 right here, it will rapid Z, whatever you put in here. It's going to be a negative number because Z0 is at the top. So if you wanted to come down 3 inches before you start probing, you could change this to a -3. So a little bit easier in this system, the auto tool change. Okay, now I'm going to go into the Delta system real quickly. Okay. Now this one has, again, we were able to develop this a little bit farther, make it a little bit more powerful than we could in Mach 3. So here we have, under Smart Tool, we have a Rapid Z button, which you can enable or disable. So if I turn Rapid Z off, it will plunge probing slowly the entire distance, okay? So I have some high schools that's the way that they run it, because they figure if it takes an extra minute to touch this bit off, they're never going to have to worry about the student running the machine and crashing it. So they just disable it, okay? In here, you can enable it. And then we have a button here that says Set Rapid Z. Now, I'll show you, there's 2 ways to do this. And the way we do it at the factory is we go into settings. And of course, it has a password for settings. You guys are all owners, so I can give you the password. It's 2020. It's the year that this came out. Okay, but right here, there is a save rapid Z position. And you notice that it's set for minus 4.514. So we typically set it up here for a -5. Now let me delete all this. Okay, we'll make it a -5 and hit enter. And so now it would drop down 5 inches from save Z, and then it would start the probe. And this is a fairly safe, this will cover most tools, okay? But again, if we're in the horizontal or vertical in Smart Tool and we want to set the rapid Z, before I click this button, I'm going to show you how this works, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing here. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I just put this, it's just a dummy tool. It's a setup tool that I use. And I would put this in now. It could be in your tool change stations, or it could be in any tool in, if you have one in your, so for example, okay, sorry, Beth. So you could take any tool, take your longest tool. And if it's in the workstation, great. You're going to tell that. If it's not, it can just be here in the drawer, and it'll come to change manually. If, let's say, this is tool number 9, or it's not one of the tool stations, then we can do this. Now, in a manual tool change system that does not have the tool holder, you can't do this. Okay, you're just going to have to set it, give yourself a window. But in an auto tool change like this system, you can put your longest tool in here and then run it. So you remember that button I had on the screen, which was set rapid Z. It's right up here. It's called set rapid Z. When I click that, it's going to ask me which tool to use. So I'll go ahead and click that. In fact, let me share this real quickly with you. Okay, so I'm going to hit set rapid Z right here, and it asks me, what is your longest tool? Okay, now I'm going to change this to tool number like 9. Okay, so it won't pick up out of the auto tool change, so it doesn't run all the way back there. It's going to go right here, and so when I click this go button, it's going to have me put in tool number 9, and then it's going to go do a probe. Right, so I'll quit sharing and go back to the thing so you can watch it. Okay, so let's hit. Okay, so because I chose tool number 9, it's more than I have tool clips. So that's why I went to the manual tool change position. And I put my longest tool in here that I called for, and then I press go. Now you'll notice it's probing the entire distance because it doesn't know how long this tool is. So it's just going to probe forever. And when it finally gets to the pad, it's going to set that rapid Z so it's a 1/4 inch above the pad. So your longest tool will only have a 1/4 inch clearance. If you ever buy a longer tool, then you need to reset up your rapid Z for that new tool before you try to do a Smart Tools touch off. Otherwise, it would rapid probe right into there, crash before it starts to probe. Okay. So now you can see that that's going to work quite nicely. Let me get out of here real quickly. M6. So I'm entering a command that says grab a tool. And I said, grab tool number 1. Okay. Now it has number 9 in there. I'm really going to use this same tool, or maybe I'll use a different tool. We'll use a different tool. Okay. So when I execute this program, my smart tool is turned on. In fact, let me share my screen again so you can see this. Okay, so if I go into Smart Tool, you can see my Smart Tool is on. You don't even have to go into Smart Tool to see this. Right down here, there is a green light. When Smart Tool is on, that goes on. If I turn Smart Tool off, notice that turns red. So you know whether your Smart Tool is on or off, even if you're not in the Smart Tool display screen. Okay, so we're going to have Smart Tool turned on. Then I'm going to go to Control, and I just entered in this execute MDI M6T1. So this is going to execute a tool change real quickly. And I can't do tool 1 because that's a auto tool change system. Okay, I'm going to change this to M6T10. Okay, you could use auto tool change, but I'm just using manual tool change numbers so that it's all up here at the front. So now when I go into Smart Tool and I go to click this Set Rapid Z, oh, it's already done that Set Rapid Z. I'm sorry. When we go into Control and we hit this Execute, it's going to do a tool change. So I'm gonna quit sharing so you can watch this. Okay, so I'm executing the tool. So it's gone to the manual tool change position. Again, it could be the auto tool change, doesn't matter. Okay, this tool is a little bit shorter, but I'm going to go ahead and run this. It's going to go touch off the Smart Tool, and watch how far it rapid Z's. Okay, quite a bit closer because this tool is just a little bit shorter than my other setup tool. But that makes it very, very quick. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you real quickly is you can actually calibrate the thickness of the Smart Tool pad. So what I'm going to do okay, I'm just moving it over above the pad here, lower it down. Okay, so I'm centered over the pad so I can run this. Now I want to share my screen again here real quickly. Okay, I'm going to go into settings. Now this is a Delta system. The Mach 3 is a little different. But I want to show you this. And to be honest with you, if you're going to do it on a Mach 3 system, if you need to calibrate, I'm going to have you call in and talk with Mosiah. He's going to step you through that because it's in the background. It's like performing brain surgery, and I don't want you to screw it up. In here, it's quite simple. You notice this Smart Tool pad offset right here is 0.940. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the A-axis. This Smart Tool thickness right here is 1.05. Okay, the easiest way to do this, I know that the pad is thicker than 1 inch. You can see it right here. But the way we set it up here is we change this value. So the Smart Tool is 1 inch. It's a nice round number, but we know that the Smart Tool pad is thicker than this. So the math is going to be real simple. Okay, now, I'm going to go into I got to move some stuff out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to go into Smart Tool, and I'm going to use the single tool touch off right here. Okay, and when it's done, it'll turn Smart Tool off. We don't really care about that. So I'm going to click this, but I'm going to quit sharing my screen before I do so you can watch the machine. Okay, and we're real close. This is going to go fast. I'm clicking on the single tool button right now. Okay, so it just set the Z0 1 inch below the top of that pad because we told it the pad was exactly 1 inch thick, and we know it's thicker than that, so we're safe. Now it also turned the smart tool off. So now what I'm going to do, I'll share this again real quickly, and then I'll go ahead and do it. I'm going to go to Control, and I'm going to click on this Offset Z. I know it's not going to hit the table because, again, the pad's thicker than 1 inch, but I set it to 1 inch, so it's a round, easy number. Okay? And now I'll quit sharing. So that's the button I'm going to click, is that Offset Z. Okay. Now I know it's not touching the table. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into step jog, and you can do this in Mach 3 or in Delta, either way. If you're, well, let me just share the screen so you can see it again. I know some of you are brand new, and so if I don't share the screen, you're kind of confused with what I'm pushing on. Okay, so right now, under Control, I can click and step jog, and if I click on the reset right here, it's going to just adjust it 10 thousandths of an inch. Okay, because it's set for 10 thousandths right here. And step jog is turned on. So every time I click the down, it lowers it 10 thousandths. Okay. Now I'm going to stop sharing. Sure. I'm going to spin that cutter and just bump it down. Okay, so there I spin it, I can feel it. I can turn it, but it is touching the table at that point. So that's my 0 point. And we can set that down. You can set that all the way down to, on the screen here, to 1/1000th of an inch. Okay, so if you want to get extremely accurate, which I normally do, once I touch it, I back it up 10 thousandths, then I step down 1/1000th at a time until it's just the depth that I want. It's got to be rubbing on that table. Okay, now at that point, let me share my screen again for you. You can see my Z-axis value right here is 49 thousandths. That means that this Smart Tool pad is not 1 inch, it's 1 inch and 49 thousandths. Okay, so now I can go into my settings and I'll just change this 1 inch here to 1.049. Oops, I need one less O. Okay, so now if I go back in here and I do a Smart Tool setup, I know that the Z0 is going to be right on the table.
Hey, Tracy.
Yeah.
If you reset the Smart Tool for the table, do you need to go then reset it for the turning center?
Alvin, you're one step ahead. Okay. So that's the second thing we have to do. And let me share my screen and I'll show you. I'm not going to do this, but I'll explain the process, okay? It's a little bit more in depth, but I'll share the screen right here. Okay, so we would go into the turning right here. And what you'll want to do is load a program that you're going to turn to a specific diameter, like 1.5 inches or 2 inches or 1 inch, whatever. So just take a scrap piece of block, doesn't have to be very long. I usually do a 2x4, 1.5 by 12 inches square. I write a program to turn it around. Now, and then I run that program. Now, once you do, I take calipers and I measure that round diameter. And I go into settings, and that is this value right here. Okay, and it will be set something, but if you measure now and the diameter of the part is larger, and I'm going to use round numbers. Let's say it's 1/10 of an inch, 0.1 inches larger. So you're trying to get 1.5 and you're measuring 1.6. Then you would have to increase this number by half that difference. So you'd have to increase it by 0.05. Now, if you measured it instead of 1.5, it was measuring 1.4. Again, I'm using very large rounded numbers. That means it's 1/10 of an inch smaller. So this number would have to get smaller by 50 thousandths, 0.05. Okay, so you're going to have to do a test cut on around and then adjust this number to half the difference. And again, the rule for you to remember is simply if it's larger, you increase that number, the value of that number, by half the difference. If it's smaller, you decrease it by half the difference. And then it'll turn the stock to the right diameter when you're turning. Now, the only time you would ever have to do that is if you replace that Smart Tool pad. Okay. Or if this got crashed and all chewed up and you ever had to replace this pad here, I would redo the calibration on it just to make sure that everything's perfect. Okay, it might be a few thousandths difference, but I'd still do it. Right, so if you have to adjust just this plate, or you have to replace your Smart Tool because it failed or got ran over by a truck or something like that, then you're going to replace it and recalibrate.
One more
okay.
quick.
You bet. Go ahead.
Yeah, at one point in time, you were talking about redoing these Smart Tools because of the amount of pressure it took to set them off. Are you still looking into that?
Yeah, that is correct, Alvin. If yours hasn't been corrected, what you can do is we can send you, it's a little foam spring pad that goes inside here, and you take off these screws on the outside, and that outside ring come off in the pad. You're gonna find a round piece of foam underneath there that goes all the way around. You're gonna take that out and put this new one in, it's scalloped, and then put this back together like that. Then you would have to recalibrate. So you can, probably the best thing is contact Cindy and just say that you want the spring foam for the new Smart Tool pad to convert it to light pressure. And she will get that for you. I don't know what the cost is. It can't be too expensive, but probably more expensive to ship it to you than it is to buy the little foam pad. It's we have it laser cut, so it's scalloped and everything. But anyway, so that's available. If your pad on the originals, this took quite a bit of pressure to set that off. And now it's very light. In fact, I'll show you. I'm just going to push this pad with my thumb, and I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. So it doesn't matter which display screen you're on. Program, Smart Tool, Control. Okay. I'm gonna close my chat for a minute. It's right on my screen. Then you'll always see this probe over here in the corner. See, if I go to Tools, you still have this probe. Now, when I push that Smart Tool pad down, that light comes on. And this takes very little pressure to trigger that light. So this is a really good practice. Okay, this is an excellent practice when you're using your machine, because if you tripped on that cable or shorted it out, or if it wasn't plugged in or something, and you try to touch off without it functioning, then you'll crash. You could damage it. So it's real good practice before you ever do a Smart Tool setup. Just take this pad and hit this, and you're going to see the little light come on the screen right up here. Then you know it's good, and you're good to go. Okay, we're opening up for Q&A, so go ahead and jump in. Let me open up the chat first of all, because I know Carl had some stuff he wanted. Let me go through the chat, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Okay. Okay, Pat says he had to reset his and broke his T-wrench. Part 3 of 9.1, you said you would post. I'm interested in that file. Alan, send me an email which one you want posted, and I'll see if we've got it. I did have one that did not get recorded.
Oh, hey, you know.
It reduces the overall height of the waves, but
okay, next one. Okay, this is from Bob. He's talking about Grizzly makes a 5-inch 4-jaw chuck. Its part number is H8042. Is automatically adjusting jaws. It's very thin. You have to drill and tap a screw. Okay, so Bob's got a source for a 4-jaw chuck. We'd done that 2 weeks ago on the 4-jaw chuck, which is the best tool I think you can put on the machine. I would definitely add it. So if you look in the chat, you can look up Bob Detweiler and find his source for that chuck. Okay, Bob was asking, with Maverick 3x5 and Mach 3, can I do Rapid Z on touch off? Okay, yes, you can. It will do Rapid Z, but in Mach 3, if it's not doing the Rapid Z quite deep enough and you want to increase it, then please contact Mosiah and he'll walk you through it to make sure it's done correctly. Okay, it's a little, again, if it's a manual tool change with Mach 3, you have to go in. Okay, I'm going to show you where it is real quickly. Okay, so again, this is going into the back door. You have to go to Operator, Edit Button Script, and click on the Smart Tool. No, I'm lying to you. You don't do that. You go to VB Script Editor, and you go down till you find the M999. And it's this value right here, Z Rapid Plunge. So you would change that -1 to the distance you want to come down. Remember, Z0 is safe Z is at the top. And so this is coming down 1 inch. If you want to come down farther, you just make that a -2 or a minus whatever you want. There's no way to have it automatically measure it. You're going to have to see where it is with your longest tool and figure how much you want to increase it to turn that on. Okay. Rapid Z on Mach does not turn on and off. It's always on. It's just how much this value is right here. Okay. Oh, we got quite a few chats. Okay, we might spend the whole rest of the time going through these chats. So hold on to your horses. We'll go through them. Okay, Ted. All right, Ted, drop me an email, Ted, about the training. We'll do that. Robert's asking, what brand is the yellow cyclone in the background? It's Oneida, Oneida. I got this I've looked at several. I got this recommendation from TL and Russell. I went out to his place, and he has 2 of these. And also one of my other customers, Steve Thomason, has one, and they work extremely well. I'm very, very happy with it. I've used several, but this is the one that I picked. By the way, the one that I have back there is a 5 horsepower, and it's a wall mount. We're actually going to put it in a cabinet, so it won't make much noise, and it'll be out of the way. Okay, how do you copy one offset to another, e.g. offset 6 to offset 7 in Mach 3? All right, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so let's say that we're in offset 1 right here. So this, okay. So in offset 1, I'm going to say, I'm not going to use go to offset unless I zero my Z up high. And then I can say go to offset. Okay. And it's going to move to X0, Y0 right here. Okay, and that's 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/1000th of an inch and 2/10 of 1/1000th of an inch. So it's pretty accurate. Okay, so now let's say I just go to offset 3 and I hit enter. Then I just X and Y. So now my number 3 and my number 1 are exactly the same. Okay, this is what Carl was trying to ask. It says, please talk about using the ATC using Smart Tool Pad. Okay. A Smart Tool Pad is exactly the same, no matter if you're running ATC or manual tool change, or if you're running auto tool change, and it's either one of the tool stations on the machine or one's greater than the tool station. So if you have 7 tool holders or 6 tool holders and you put in tool number 10, it's still going to set up exactly the same. So the Smart Tool Pad, the setup is the same. Put any bit you want in. If you're doing multiple tools, you can use any bit because it's not measuring that tool. It's calculating the difference between those two positions. So if multiple tools, any bit will work. Doesn't matter if it's auto tool change or manual tool change. Just pick up a tool, put it in, and run it. Okay. Single tool has to be the tool that you are going to run in your program. So if your program says use tool number 3 and it's a V bit, you have to make sure tool number 3 is in station number 3 and pick it up. Or if it's auto tool change, you can always say pick up bit number 3 manually, and it'll come up to the front and do it. You can pick up tool number 9 and change it to tool number 3. Lots of ways to do it, but the simple matter is, if it's multiple tools, any bit will work, whether it's auto tool change or not. If it's manual tool change, any bit will work as long, well, manual tool change. If it's single tool setup, only the bit that you're going to cut with. Now, once you start running the program, if it's a manual tool change, it's going to come to the front, have you change the tool either with wrenches or by putting the tool holder in, like we did, and then hit go. And then it's going to run over and it's going to touch off the Smart Tool if the Smart Tool is enabled on your software. Okay. If it's not, it's going to go try and cut. You'll probably be wrong. But if you just did a Smart Tool setup for multiples, it will be on because it turns it on. So you always just run the program, and you don't have to worry about it now. It'll grab a tool, touch off Smart Tool, cut. It'll put that tool away, grab the next tool, touch off Smart Tool, cut. Put the next tool away, manual or auto, doesn't matter. It's all the same.
Tracy, this is Ollie. If you're going to run the same part, do you have to start over again with the Smart Tool on top of the surface of the material?
No, the only time you'll ever change Smart Tool setup, do a Smart Tool setup, is if, and this is one of the reasons for doing it on the bottom of the material, because that never changes. And so you just set it once and you always go. If you're setting on top of the material, if you're using the exact same part, just a different part, don't set it up again, just run it. Now, if you run a thicker part and it's a different program, or if you set up Z0 on the top and you're just V-carving on different thicknesses of blanks, then you would have to set it. So it's only if that position changes that you would have to set it up again. Does that make sense, Ollie?
Well, yeah, but when I tried that one time, it went through the material and into my bed.
Okay, we need to make contact. I need to find out exactly what you're doing so we can figure out what's going on. But if you have Smart Tool turned on and you do a Smart Tool setup, okay, let me show you something that may have caught you off guard. Okay, you'll notice right now, I'm going to hide my chat. You'll notice right now we're in fixture number 1. And if I do a Smart Tool setup for fixture number 1, if I go into, something else, like if I go into settings or home or whatever, and I come back into a horizontal table, it's still in 1. That number is still the same. But let's say that I was setting it up here and I did my Smart Tool setup here, and I went to somewhere else and then came back into that screen. If I leave that screen and come back into it, it's going to default to the first one. And if you try to run it, it'll be wrong. You'd have to go back and choose this one. So I'm not sure that that's what happened to you, Ollie, but that's one of the things that can happen. So if we can, talk through your process, I can probably get a better idea. But that's one thing to watch. If you go out, come back in, make sure you choose the offset you were working and that you did the setup in. Otherwise, it'll be wrong. Now, if you just do a one setup, you run one program and Smart Tools on, you run another program, you should have no problems at all.
Could also have his program set for bed and trying to set it on surface.
Yeah, that's true. If that's why you have to match. If you, in the program, if you set the Z0 on the bed, you have to set up on the bed. If it's put on the top, it has to be on the top. If you say you set it on the surface of the material and you put it on the bed, it's going through your table. You're exactly right.
Hey, Tracy, I got something I want to clarify. You used to say to use the surface planing tool for touching off to the Smart Tool because it had a flatter bottom. But with the little light touch pads, does that even matter anymore? Or
not nearly as much. I never really like to do my Smart Tool setups with a V bit or something that comes to a really fine point. So I will typically use either an end mill. You can see this one's only 1/4 inch. That'll work just fine. I seem to be out of focus slightly. Personally, I use this little 1/2 inch dummy tool as my setup tool because it doesn't have any cutting surface on it. It's flat. So it treats the Smart Tool pad real carefully. And I just use this as tool number like 9 or 10. And I also have one, I don't have it in here, but I have one with the laser in it as well. And so I use it for like tool number 8 and 9 or 9 and 10 or whatever I want. I never put it in my tool clips. But that's what I use for my touch offs because it's very blunt, it's flat, and it's going to land perfectly.
What material? What material is that? Looks like brass.
That is correct. This particular one is brass. It's a 1/2 inch piece of brass, 1/2 inch diameter. Does
it need to be metal? Because the old days it did, but with the light touch, it sounds like you got a microchip in there.
Yeah. So on a mock 3x5 with 3x5 with mock, then your Smart Tool pad does not have a proximity switch in it. It's a contact, so it's conductive. It has to complete the circuit, so it has to be metal. This is non-conductive because it has a proximity sensor inside the Smart Tool pad. So it just has to push that pad down until it gets close. So any kind of pressure, with your finger, a router bit, doesn't really matter. You can trigger it. So it could be any material. It could be plastic if you want. Okay. Okay. Norm, let's follow up with your emails on the error that you got. I'm not going to take time right here, but let's touch base. I'll go through my emails and see if I can find it. If not, just give me a call. We'll go through it. You didn't really do Mach 3 single tool. In particular, if you do single tool, does Mach 3 turn off Smart Tool after it touches it? Yes. Okay. Dr. Automation actually answered Hal's question about switching, copying offsets. So if you have questions on that, go through that. Yes. Okay, William is having an issue with the Z0 being incorrect. So this is what he says. He's asking if anybody else has seen this. I use tool 1 in selecting multi-tool touch off in the material. When it goes to the home position, then when I start the project, it goes back to home and touches off again, but the Z0 is wrong. And that's tool number 1.
Yeah, the only way I've seen to solve that for myself, and this is Will, by the way, is I have to go tell the smart controller to touch off using single tool and then do the multi-tool touch off, and then it seems to work.
Would you do me a favor? Send me an email with the process, the problem that you're seeing, and how you're working around it. I want to try to recreate it here, and if it's a problem with our controller, I need to get it fixed.
I seem to think it's something like it specifically seems to happen with tool one. So, like I'm running one project and I'm using the flattening bit, for example, and I flatten it. And then I start up a new project and I replace it with a 1/4 inch end mill. And then I, do my multi-tool for that project. It seems like it's either storing the first tool one or something like that. It seems something like that. But as soon as I do the single tool and then go through the multi-tool, it works every time.
Wow, that's weird. Okay, well, if you don't mind, send me an email with as much description as possible so I can try to recreate. I have to recreate in order to get it fixed, or else there's no way to edit the ladder logic to fix it if we can't reproduce it.
Tracy, mine touches off again when I start the program.
Mine does here too as well, and that's why I want as much documentation, as much all the background, what's going on, and your process to help me out so I can recreate it.
Yeah, and from what I can tell, it looks like it's actually when it does the second touch off, it looks like it's actually touching off and zeroing out at the bed level. So it'd be like if you know how that is. Anyway, I'll get you some document.
Yeah, send me an email. I appreciate that. Okay, Danny Sell's asking what date of Delta Machine is the new touch off with that soft sponge. I couldn't tell you an exact date, Danny. What I can tell you is that if you'll take those screws out and just lift that off, if it's a solid foam ring, it's actually one piece that's wrapped around like a ring, then it's the old style. And so you can then order just the replacement that goes inside there.
So I can just call Cindy and she can order those for me.
Yep. I'll give her a heads up, let her know, because sometimes in class I'll say something here and then they're not aware of it. And then all of a sudden she gets a million phone calls. She goes, "What did you say?" So I'll give her a heads up about the smart tool. Okay. Is the metal pad on the smart tool a replacement item? It is. I have a 4x8 Maverick. Is there a way to move the touch-off pad out an inch or two so I can extend the base table? You could, okay, the smart tool pad, this one's mounted on top, and some of the other ones are mounted on the front. This one, the only way to move it is you'd have to take those screws out, drill new holes, move it back. If yours is a previous version and it's mounting on the end, then you could put a spacer between it. But if you have more, I need more information, maybe pictures. You might want to send that as a ticket to technical support with send photos into Mosiah, and we can get you taken care of. Okay, can an old style smart tool pad develop dead spots? Okay, now if your pad is on a Mach 3 system, so it's not a proximity pad, if it's just contact, then you have to make sure that it has to conduct the circuit. So you can get dirty collets, you can get gook on your router bit, sap on your router bit, tips of your cutters, anything so it doesn't conduct. And then you wouldn't really have a dead spot. You'd have it just not always contacting. So if it's one with a proximity pad in it, or proximity switch, I'm sorry, then no, there's no real dead spots. But you do want to land in the middle of that pad to get the most accurate. Jerry's asking, are the instruction videos on how to load and operate the new Beta CCAM Pro available on the website? No. To load it, you put your flash drive in and you click on the exe file and just run it. And it'll install it, leave it in, just like the original. It is exactly as the original CCAM, but you can run both. You can have CCAM 6.7, 6.5, whatever you have on there, and the new CCAM Pro. They're totally independent.
Is that compatible with Windows 10 and 11? Because you sent me 2 of those and neither one of them will load.
Will they not install, or how do they not work? What happens?
I remember you team viewed onto my computer, and I get that little balloon that says you don't have access, may not have proper permissions or something like that.
Both systems did that? If that's
Both.
the case, that's something with permissions on your system. It's your computer.
You need to run it as administrator.
Yeah, we tried that. We tried that. I actually got with support for the Windows support, and they couldn't figure it out. They said that they think that it's a corrupt file.
Well, it couldn't be a corrupt file on two different flash drives. So we haven't had any corrupt files so far, and for you to get two in a row would be not too possible. And you've tried running on a different computer?
I have not been able to do that. I don't know nobody in my neighborhood has a computer. So that's my next.
Mac.
Yeah, and mine is a Mac. My other one is a Mac. Yeah. So I'm going to try to find somebody that I can try that on. And if it does work, I'll send you an email, let you know how things go.
Go to the public library and see if you can stuff.
That's kind of similar to the problem I'm having, Tracy. So we can talk about that tomorrow. I'll give you a call.
Okay. While we're on the subject, you should have all received an email. Okay. Anybody with CCAM, even if yours hasn't showed up, CCAM Pro, even if yours hasn't showed up yet, you should have received an email. And what you can do, it has a link, but it's pretty simple. It's lwmcnc.com/CCAM. Okay. And if you'll use this, some of these are mandatory names, emails, and so on, and put questions, suggestions, and if you're able to work on, if you're trying to do setup, then you check this little setup right here. Give me exactly what you're seeing. But if you all put in here, then I can find all of the common problems, and we can get those taken care of first.
Tracy, I did send that to you today through that form, so you'll get that also. But recommendation on that form is give us an upload so we can give you screenshots.
Oh, a good idea. I'll change that. All right. Thanks, Norm. I like that a lot. All right. Okay. Is the Rapid Z on which you show is for touching off Smart Tool Home or for any Rapid Z? It's always for Smart Tool Home, only for Smart Tool Home. Bob's asking about the Fort Jachet class. I don't think it's been posted, to be honest with you. I'll get with Chris and see if we can get it posted. I had to leave town for about a week and drove out to Detroit, did about 60 hours on the road. It was exciting. So I've been out of it, and I apologize. We'll catch back up after the holidays. If you're running several programs and the parts are the same thickness, Phil, can you do the multiple tool touch off process on the first part and then not do the touch off again? Okay, no, Phil, you cannot do that. Okay, so keep in mind, let me make sure I'm not giving you bad information. You got to read your chat again. If you're running several programs and the parts are the same thickness, can you do the multiple part touch off process on the first part and then not have to do the touch off again? Oh, yes, Phil, you can. That's right. If they're all the same thickness, you do it one time. I misread it the first time. Sorry. All right. Separate subject altogether. Do you have any plans?
Tracy?
Yes.
Oh, can I just one follow up on that? Does it remember it then over like the next day if you're running the programs again?
Yeah, it's recorded
in work offset.
It's recorded in the memory, and so it's going to. You shut it off, turn it back on. It still remembers it.
Okay,
but it has to be in the right workstation.
Correct.
Okay. Any plans for runtime for a job on the Delta controller? I like that idea. I need to create a form for Delta controllers as well, like we've done for CCAM Pro, so you can give me your suggestions. If you send emails, I get so many emails, unfortunately, they often get misplaced or lost, and I have to go dig them up. So I'll create a form for Delta and take all your feedback I can get.
Tracy, this is again. I noticed one thing on my Delta the other day. I have a part that does some engraving, and then it goes back and real slow to clean it up, but the speed doesn't change on the monitor.
You're doing V-carve?
I don't understand.
You're doing a V-carve toolpath?
Yes.
And you go back with the second toolpath to clean it up?
Yes.
And you set that feed rate slower, but it doesn't run slower?
It runs slower, but it don't indicate the speed on the monitor.
Oh, really? Okay, so when you're in the program display screen, your feed rate that's programmed this is 100%, this slider right here. So if you want to adjust it manually, this is a percentage, not an actual feed rate. Okay, hit that again, it'll go back to 0. Your actual feed rate will be read up here, and it'll constantly be changing because, especially in a V-carve, Z-axis, everything's always constantly changing, but you should be able to read kind of an average speed right here. Now, there's one possibility in V-carve.
No. My error. I thought it was the rate, not the percentage.
Oh, okay. That's 100%. And so look up here on this top, and you're going to see the feed rate up in here. Okay. Okay, I'm waiting for my machine, but I would like to access CCAM now. Can that be done? Scott, it can be done. Yeah, the only thing is you would need to, you can talk to Cindy and see if she can ship it out to you if she's got them in stock. We make them quite a bit, and so generally we do have them in stock, and it can be sent out. She might charge you for shipping. Okay, I don't know, but yeah, just call Cindy and talk with her, ask her about it. I use a 0.022 bit, and if I touch off, the bit breaks often. How would I do that? Bob, okay, I need to know, is this a Delta system or is it a Mach 3 system?
It's a Mach 3.
And just coming down and touching off, it's breaking. There, okay, we could log on. Oh, I'm not going to have this on. I haven't installed the plugin on this system, so I can't show you. But let me just show you real quickly. You can get with Mosiah, and he can probably help you out with this. If he can't, he'll come get me. But if you go to plugin control, I don't have it here, okay? But you would have the plugin that you have to have on your system to run, and it'll be in this list. And when you open it up, it's going to have a setting that it's a time delay. And I got into something there. It's a time delay, and so that you don't get erroneous, noise on the system that flashes it and tells you that it's touched. And if that time delay is longer, it has to be in contact longer, so it applies more force. So we could go in and change that time delay to very, very, very short. And that might do it. If you don't have a proximity pad, then it's definitely that time delay is the only thing that we could play with to get it to work. Okay, because it just waits for how long. So if you said wait 1 second before it has to be on for 1 second before you get a real signal, then it's driving for a full 1 second. Now it's going to be set in nanoseconds, but we can reduce that and maybe help you out with that. So contact Mosiah, and if he has questions, he can contact me and I'll help him out. But I think he knows how to do it. Okay, that's all the chat. Is there any other questions anybody has?
I do. Tracy, this is Wilford.
All right, Wilford, what can I do for you?
In CCAM Pro, I want to do some Internet
I lost your audio. You need to come back again. Wilford, I can't hear you. So you can put it in the chat, or if you can get your microphone to work, try it again, but I'm not hearing you.
While you're waiting, Tracy, a quick off subject. You sent me the new Delta controller that you had me install on my 2020. And in the notes, it says to go in and put it on the machine, hit the EXE, and it'll load, which it did. Then it also says to go into settings and pick the new version. I can't figure out how to get it. I mean, I can get into settings, but I can't find where I can change the version.
Okay, I'll show you. Okay, you can see my screen now here. It's this controller version right down here in the bottom left-hand corner.
Right, and on mine, I can read controller version, and there are no numbers after it, nothing.
Okay, so just click in this field. It'll be blank. Just click where these numbers would go and type it in.
Okay, I'll give that a shot. Thank you.
The original versions didn't have this, so there was no value in there. That's why it's just blank. It just says controller version with nothing there. So yeah, you just click here in this location and put in the 2021-06-12.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, Wilford, I didn't ever catch your question. Can you come back in? Let me check the chat, see if you put it in there.
Hi, Tracy. This is Chris Dungy. I've been raising my hand, but I don't think you're paying attention. I have a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
This has only happened to me once, but I always anticipate it. I'm in Mach 3 on a 3x5 Maverick, and the tool came down and touched the smart pad and then stopped. It didn't raise up, it just stalled. And I couldn't get the only thing that I could do was to pull the smart tool pad from under the tool. And then I believe I hit the reset button, which took forever to re-home the machine. And so I'm just wondering, like I said, it's only happened one time. And every time I use the smart tool pad, I anticipate it stalling for whatever reason. I don't know why it did. So I'm just wondering, how would you get out of that if it were to happen again?
So it goes down and it pins the pad, and you can't raise the Z-axis off of it?
Correct. Nothing would work on my keyboard or the mouse. I couldn't raise it up. It just totally stopped.
So did it lock up your whole computer?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
And it only happened one time. So I'm not super concerned, but at the same time, every now and again, I wonder if it's going to happen. And if there's not a workaround, but what would you suggest on if that were to happen again, how to get out of that situation?
Well, the only thing you can do, if it's locked up your computer, all you can do is power the computer down, restart it, restart the software. You probably have to redo your setups as well. That's if it's, like I say, if it's locked on the computer, there's nothing else you can do. That's done. My question for you, though, would be, did you have anything show up here in the status line?
I don't remember at the time. This is probably 2 or 3 months ago. And I just don't remember.
Was it a long tool or a short tool?
It was probably, it was a 1/2 inch 3-flute mill that was maybe sticking out 2 inches or 1.5 inches.
That should be fine then. It sounds to me like somehow it locked up your computer. It wasn't really a function of Mach 3 doing its thing. It was something between Windows and Mach 3 is all I could guess at this point. Okay. If it's Mach 3, it'll generally put a message, an error message up here in the status line. So hopefully you'll never see it again, but if you ever do, check this first thing. See if there's
Okay.
anything that's satisfying.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. Other than that, you got to shut down and restart. And you definitely need to check your setups, make sure your
Okay.
XY datum and your Z is still good.
And last question is, my smart tool doesn't have the bolts around the perimeter, so I don't know if I have an older version.
Yeah, yours is your square or rectangle rather?
No, it's sort of the octagonal, but it doesn't have the screws around the perimeter.
What I'm going to have you do then is send a picture to Mosiah Technical Support. Go to Technical Support. You can submit a support ticket on our website. I would do that first because he follows up on those and he can track, make sure they're all taken care of. And we'll see if there's anything that can be done there. I don't know, to be honest with you. There may be a version where we couldn't change it out. Well, all of them have to be able to change out. It's just whether we have the parts. It's just how do you do it? It's a different arrangement. Screws might be on the bottom or something like that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
But take pictures top and bottom, send in and ask, and we'll see if we can help you.
Thank you.
You bet.
A suggestion is when something goes haywire, get your cell phone out and snap a picture of your screen. That's what I do.
Oh, yeah. Take a picture of screen so you know what's on there because you're going to shut it down.
And I can send it to you and you can answer the question, Tracy.
Okay. All right. All right. I got a question here from Kurt in the chat. It says regarding a 4-jaw chuck. Is the Nova G3 a good solution? It's 8 TPI by 1 inch. It's an excellent system. Nova makes great chucks. G3 is excellent. It's a little expensive, but you can't go wrong with that chuck. It's going to be great. Is there an upgrade for the Mach 3, or excuse me, for the Maverick 4x8 to go from Mach 3 to the new controller? Not yet. Okay. And not for some time. You're probably aware of the supply chain issues that everybody's suffering from. Every MP1 that we get in is already locked up for our cells, and so we can't do any upgrades at this point. We also don't know how they would be performed. So there's multiple questions. It's something that we do want to do, just not at this time. I had to replace my soft limit switches and now everything stops to the left where it used to. Do you have a video or anything to show how to reset soft limits? I have Mach 3. All right, let me show you soft limits. What you're going to do in Mach 3 is you're going to turn on your machine coordinates by clicking on this button. It's going to be right here. You're going to turn your soft limits off so that they don't stop it. You can move it anywhere, but at this point you have to be very careful. So the first thing, of course, you have to reference the machine to make sure you're good to go. Turn off your soft limits, go to your machine coordinates. Then you're simply going to jog like the y-axis or the x-axis to the offset you're setting. So if I'm going to the right of the operator on the y-axis negative, when it gets over there, so you've got about an 1/8 of an inch gap between the inside of the gantry and the spindle, the z-axis assembly, you just pay attention to this value right here. Okay, you're going to go to Control and go to homing/limits. Limits is the key, right? And if we were doing the Y and it was the minimum, you would change that number right there. If it was the maximum to the left side, it would go here. And on the X, your max would go here. My numbers here, pay no attention to my numbers. I just put the software in. I haven't set this up. These are arbitrary, random, stupid numbers. But you're going to have an X of like, 60 inches. I'm just guessing. A Y of, maybe -5 inches, something. I don't know. And the Y is going to be a negative and a positive. And you can check the Z. Stupid Bixby. Okay, so you can check X, Y, and Z, and these are the values you're going in. Again, home first, reference the machine, turn soft limits off, turn on machine coordinates, so this is flashing, jog it to where you want the soft limit to be, note that number in your register, and put it in configs, homing limits.
What is the slow zone?
Okay, the slow zone is when it's okay. So when you're running it, you don't want to run full speed up to the soft limit. You want it to come in and then you want it to slow down to stop because it's got a lot of mass and you'll crash and you'll lose steps and stuff. So the slow zone is just how far it's going to travel as it stops. X is generally greater than Y. They're generally not 7 and 6. This is huge. You might be 4 on the X and you might be 2 on the Y. And on the Z, you might be a ½ inch or something. So it's just, and you can play with that so that it slows down quickly, but doesn't take forever. But and those are inches, by the way. In Mach 3, those are inches. All right. Let's see if we've got anything else. Someone here says that this has happened multiple times for me, I guess, pinning the Z axis. If you can, again, give me as much information as possible when it happens, what's happened, we can see if we can find it. But I would probably check that timing, that delay. The Grizzly H8042. This is the one that Bob put up earlier about the 4-jaw check. It's only $91. That's a good price. Yeah, that's a really good price. Again, that's the Grizzly H, as in hotel, 8042. Okay, that's all the chats. Any more questions before we call it a night? All right, good enough. I apologize for all the technical difficulties we're still having. I've got to get my microphone. I got a wireless mic, got to get it fixed. I got to get this computer completely set. A bunch of things. So I appreciate your patience. And if you have suggestions, I'd love to hear them. Thanks. Good night, everyone.